Hi there, thanks for watching. I'm Sarah and this is Lyzzette, and we are here Lyzzette has kindly volunteered to share a little bit about her experience with my yoga teacher training program. So hi Lyzzette, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm good. Happy to share.
Thank you. So I want to start by asking you, how did you feel before you started the program?
The
What
yoga
was your
tea.
biggest hesitation?
My biggest hesitation was giving the time that the program was asking for. It was 6 hours a week at the time, and I think it was a 10-month program.
Yeah.
That and the money was a lot. It was a lot more than, besides taking a graduate course in college. I guess it was a similar price to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was the money and it was the time.
Yeah. So when I was in New Jersey, I used to do these courses in person, and the format was a little bit different. So the new students actually have it a little bit easier because for them, it's only once a week, 3.5 hours, and then 2 Saturdays per quarter. So that helps a little bit with the time, but it's still that long-term format that I had in New Jersey. Can you explain to us why do you think that's important? So what was your experience in going through this long-term program?
It certainly, now in hindsight, as I'm teaching yoga now, and even soon afterwards, actually, I shouldn't say that. Probably 6 months into the program, it was the practice was rooted within me. It was just something I had to do. It was my homework. We had to come to class twice a week. That those two, you make that space and that time for the practice because that's what I signed up for. So I want to say 6 months. It was just like a part of everything I did, as is brushing my teeth and taking a shower. Before that, it was. I feel like it was just I have to make space for that, make space for that, make space for that. But about 6 months in, I had realized that everything just started to revolve around it. That was just something I had to do. As important as showering and brushing my teeth, I needed my practice, and that was my time to be in yoga teacher
So
training.
what you're saying is basically before the program, how did you do yoga? You did like YouTube videos and stuff.
Yeah.
What
For
was your
years, I did an app daily, probably, and then I would take classes here and there. There's so many studios around, and I never really had a membership at a yoga studio until I found your studio, and I signed up, and it wound up being the only yoga studio I was going to, and I was doing classes with you once a week, and then it turned into twice a week, and
So then what was that shift like, right? Because, a lot of people do this because they feel like they don't have time, they don't want to invest the money in a membership, so they go to this teacher, to that teacher, to this studio, to that studio. They tried this method, they tried that method. And now you're saying you started consistently with me, and then 6 months into the program, you really felt like now your practice was rooted in a strong foundation. What did that do for you? So, okay, so this is what you do now. You no longer have to struggle and be scatterbrained trying to decide, do I make it to class? Do I not make it to class? Like, no, this is just what I'm doing. What does that feel like? What does that look like on a practical way in a daily life? What happens?
it takes away that searching piece. To be honest with you, right? For me, I think it's all in hindsight. At the time, I'm like, well, this teacher, I feel this way today, and I'm going to go to take this class because I feel like that's what my body needs, or whatever. I'm just looking and searching, looking for a deal almost, or I like the setting of this studio, or I like the incense she burns, or whatever it was. I'm just looking for ways to, quench my whatever it is that I'm looking for. So I think what changed for me is I no longer needed that. I just knew whatever I needed, didn't matter where. I just knew where to go to find my own. You know,
And when you say you knew where to go, it wasn't really the studio that you mean. It's
no,
like
no.
where to go.
it was me. I could practice. I found a place to practice in my home. I came to realize it was really whatever I can create. It's, it doesn't really
Why
matter.
do you think that is, right? Because, anybody who's considering this yoga teacher training program is like, yeah, I do yoga. I do it at my own pace. I do it, whatever feels good for me. But why do you think it's so helpful to have that support of a community and a teacher and a consistent practice? Like, what was the shift between the way that you used to practice before to the way that when we practice together, how we go a little more in depth? Can you talk about what that feels like?
It turned into, so yoga for years to me, I've been working with you. I've known you for 5 years, working with you for 5 years. So for 10 years, I like to say, or at this point, it's probably like 12 years. I did yoga for 12 years, and with different studios, different teachers on my app. 12 years I've been doing yoga, and it was primarily for fitness, right? It feels good, and then my body feels good, and I'm just trying to stay in shape. And then there's like the calming aspect of yoga, but it was really just, I don't know, it was not a spiritual thing. It wasn't an inward journey to me. Every now and then I would get with the words and the guidance through a meditation from a teacher. I would every now and then I would go in and feel that it feels good, and that was whatever. But the difference to me, the training, the community and the training, it just opened up just kind of the secret, just, I don't know, things that you can bring into the day. It makes you a different person. You're a little bit more, you're very connected to the spirit if you receive yoga in that way as a part of the spiritual practice. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So it sounds like in the past you were kind of using that as a band-aid. You would have a stressful day, you would go to yoga, it would fix it, you will feel good for a few days, and then you would kind of like get out of whack again, and then go do more yoga, and then you would come back to your center. And then through the program, it actually flipped. It became the other way around. Like now you're centered, and it doesn't matter what comes at you, you're deeply grounded because you're rooted in your practice from a spiritual perspective, and not just from like a stress management, make me feel better temporarily kind of perspective. Now,
I guess that's it. That makes sense. That's exactly what it is. That's what I was like, the searching. That's what I was looking for. Just a little bit of relief, right? A little time for me, and then whatever relief came from a class or, yeah.
So now, how did that translate to your home and to your work? So now you're centered in and rooted in yourself and your practice, connected to your spirit. What does that look like on a daily basis for you now?
That's a good question. I could talk. So at work, I'm also a special ed teacher, and I'm a head teacher, lead teacher at the school. So I get to support my colleagues, and then I work with special needs. So I think for a long time, so I've been doing that for 12 years. For a long time, and now I see it, it was a lot of my ego made me believe that only I can do that job in the way that I was doing it. Like, if I don't do this for the kids, I can't walk away from this job even though I'm feeling burnt, because who's going to care for them the way that I do? Who's going to support the teachers the way that I do? It was a lot of, only I can do that. And I'm seeing that now. At the time, that's not the voice.
Well,
that's
you
not the
see
way
it now. So right now you see it as ego from a place of love, right? And acceptance. But at the time, I would imagine it was heavy. Like,
Yes.
That's a lot of responsibility to carry.
Right. Almost like I can't walk away because only I can do this. But now it's like I'm just there to serve, and I can do that probably better than ever now, because it's all good. And it's high stress. Things can become very, unstable and crazy. But what I have found is it's just a part of it.
So the same job, actually a lot harder now with the current situation, but yet easier?
So much easier. So much easier, and so much I have now shifted, and I feel like that job is actually a perfect place where I'm constantly going back to center. Like I have to do what I know how to do in order to go there. So
Interesting.
it's
Now, instead of the challenge throwing you out of balance, the challenge makes you go inwards more and get even more rooted in that center, because it doesn't matter what comes at you, you're not leaving that center. And so since what you have coming at you is so much, you then actually have to root even more into your center. Could you have done this on your own?
No way. I didn't even know it. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what it was. Like, I can't even, now it's like we're having a conversation, right? But it's all just, it only makes sense when you look back. Like I didn't come looking for yoga teachers, and like, oh my gosh, I have so much ego at work and at home, and I'm searching for, I didn't know that until, it's not until you have something they're like, oh my God, I was crazy. Like, so yeah, no way. You don't know. Like, I didn't know.
So and that is so true, because I feel the same way. It's like what I knew is all I knew. And so I went through life suffering like hell, and I didn't even know there was another way not to suffer. Like I didn't have the point of reference to know what that even felt like, or to know that it even freaking existed. And then to be on the other side and you have this unshakable foundation, it's like you just want to shout it out of the rooftop. So talk to me real quick to keep this short. What has been your experience teaching as a teacher? When you graduated, did you feel confident? And what has happened as you began to teach?
Yoga, right? Mm-hmm. What has it? So no, I still, as soon as I graduated, I'm a teacher already. Like I am used to, so I think that helped me a little bit, feel a little bit confident, like in front of people and trying to teach. But it was new. I still feel very, I still write notes. I still, and I still, when I know I'm teaching, I take a little bit of extra that day to ground. Like it's still not, I can't, I almost feel like someone's like, oh, can you teach in an hour? I'd be like, what? That's not enough time. I need a little bit more time. So I'm still like a newbie because if you ask me to teach a special ed class, I'll do it like right now. But with yoga, I'm still, it's still new, but like I said, when I'm practicing, when I have to teach, I almost take extra care of myself. So it's good for me. Really...
I still have teachers. So yesterday I was taking a class with my Kundalini teacher, and we're talking about this a little bit and kind of just having this conversation about how teaching helps you rise because of what you just said. You have to show up as a teacher for your students. And therefore, in order to not be a liar and not be a hypocrite, you have to yourself together so that you are where you need to be to lead. And then when you constantly do that, now your job is something that helps you rise, right? And just for the record, I know you don't need notes, but I think that it's just I'm going to say this, my standards are pretty high, right? In everything that I do. And so I instill that in my teachers to kind of take it seriously. And so you take it seriously. And just like if you had only been teaching, you probably only taught a couple of 100 hours, not even probably a couple of 100 hours, right? A couple of hours, right? So like anything else that you do, anything new that you do, it takes time, and if you treat it with respect. So when you say that, what I perceive is I'm like, good job, Lyzzette, because that means that you're taking it with the sacredness that it needs to be taken with, right? With the respect, you're approaching your teaching job as a duty that's sacred, because that's what it is. And I think that a lot of the times that's one of the components that's maybe missing on some of the other yoga teacher trainings.
Right.
Can you speak to that just a little bit? And like, what was your biggest takeaway of the experience overall?
Of the teacher training? Yes, you're right. You're saying that that's how you taught us. I don't know any other way, but what I am seeing, so I have another friend right now who just finished a yoga teacher training and just practicing, with us, like calling us on Zoom to teach. And I don't know, like I see the difference and I'm like, she's not prepared. Or, like, what do you mean you're just doing that because it feels good? I get that, but like there's no, I don't know. I feel like there's no prep. There's no,
there's no cohesiveness
I don't
in
know.
the class, no proper
There's no, right. There's no proper warm-up, and then there's no, I don't know. I just know what I have to do before I teach. I don't feel that. I don't feel it energetically.
It's called sacred space and teacher space.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
So a lot of the times teachers, they go through a teacher training, but because the teacher who's teaching the training doesn't hold a certain level of energy for the practice, then they treat it like if it's exercise, and they show up in a friendly way to have conversations with their students, and like they want to be liked, and they want to make sure that you like their class, so you come back, and it's this like clingy.
You know what? Yeah. So very good way to put it, because now that you're saying that, I've also taught, especially with COVID, I taught like a little group of my cousins and my, family, where it can be very playful. But what I noticed, and this just came from no other reason, just from the training, but we would like BS back and forth, right? And then I said, okay, guys, are you ready? And that would be it. And then I would have, and we'd start up, and we wouldn't say a thing until afterwards, when you close sacred space. And that's just what I did. And that's what's missing. Even with familiar people, like that's what you taught us. Like, I didn't know any other way. So you're right. That is what's missing.
So these are the kinds of things that you don't learn unless you're working with a sacred teacher who shows up day in and day out, 9 months in a row, to be there and treat the practice with that sacredness, right? So it's not even something that I think I actually taught you. It's just something that when you said what this teacher was doing, I'm like, well, that's what she's missing. And why is she missing that? Because she didn't have a role model. Right. Where I never had to teach it to you because I was just it. And therefore, you just learned that was it. And just like we train our kids, they do what we do, right? And you don't even have to tell them this is what you need to do. They just see, and then they do, because that's how it should be done. It's like a given, right? But to be honest, that's like one of the key differences, I feel, to the point where you can't even explain it to me, like what it is missing or why it is that you do different.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. I never looked at it that way, but that's probably what it is, because I could be playful too. It's just, even within the class, but it's different. It's sacred space. You're right. If it doesn't begin that way.
Last words of wisdom for anyone who is considering this program.
Last words of wisdom. So you should not hesitate if there is a calling to connect with your spirit and use yoga as a practice for yourself. Do not hesitate. Because then if you're wondering if you can teach and be a teacher, that's actually not the point of it. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah. So you do this for you. The goal, my main goal through this yoga teacher training program is to get you to become your own teacher, your own guide, to have all the tools that you need to really make it through life with mastery. And yet, every single one of my students, when they come to the end of the training, people are coming to them and saying, oh, what are you smoking? Can I have some of that? Like, right? And let me ask you this, though. So they do it for them. But what if they want to teach? Are they going to be ready to teach?
I mean, you got to just try it. Yeah, you'll be ready to teach. You're not going to be ready to be like, I don't know. It's not going to be, it's work, it's serving. You're going to be ready. You're going to be ready. You're not going to be ready to be like, all right, I'm going to go teach a class. You're going to be ready to be like, oh my God, I got to teach a class. And what do I have to do to ground? And you're going to be ready as as much as you're going to have the tools you need to teach, but it's not super easy. It's not super comfy. It's a little bit scary, but then it gets better until you realize that at the end of it all, it's so good for you. You know, it's so good for you because you know what you need to do in order to teach it, in order to hold that space.
And there's something that you just did that it's like so cool in my book, right? So we're doing this interview, we're doing this testimonial, and I'm asking you for feedback, and you're just telling me the truth, and nothing but the truth. And that is what makes you a teacher, right? The fact that we don't sugarcoat, we don't BS, we're not going to sit here and tell you that this is going to be easy and that by the time you're done, you're going to be super teacher. No, you're going to be equipped to do what you need to do, and then and have all the knowledge beyond anything that you could possibly expect. But then you have to actually go out and do the work. You have to show up for yourself. You have to want to do this. You have to want to do your part. And so this is what Lyzzette is saying. Like, well, yes, but you still have to do it.
Right, because, you know, and this is true, you've said this, that I don't get to keep it. I don't get to keep the 10 months of everything I've worked so hard for. I don't get to keep it unless I give it back. Well, and it's the freaking truth.
So it's two things there. One, like, you don't get to just sit on your laurels and do nothing. You have been given the biggest gift that you could possibly be given. And therefore you have a duty and a responsibility to give that gift for real, because it's real, right? So by the time teachers are done with my program, they're not in an egotistic place. It's like they realize what a responsibility it is. And therefore it's that much harder to teach, but then there's that much more pressure because it's that real. And so when you do go teach, because you've become who you've become, that's the energy that you bring into the classroom. And so you bring it with responsibility, and you bring it with what you said before, the intention to serve, right? So are you ready to go become a super famous big shot teacher who's everybody's gonna love and like? You're like, no, you're not ready to do that. You're ready to go serve for real. You're ready, and in order to serve for real, that requires responsibility and courage, right? And so it's a different kind of ready. It's a real ready versus what people think that they want. Because, and I'll close with this. When I started my yoga teacher training, I wanted to do it because I wanted to be just like that. And I wanted to be on stage like that. And I wanted to be, you know, adored and revered and whatever the hell. God only knows what I thought, right? And then as I really learned what it takes to be a teacher, it's a responsibility that needs to be treated with sacredness, right? And by the time you're done with the training, you're just coming with a completely different mindset. You're coming from you have so much, right? That it's from there that you give. It's a different kind of giving. It's no longer has anything to do with you. You serve because you have to, because you can. Yeah. Because you can, you must, right? That's how much you receive.
Right. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining Zoom and doing this quick little interview for me. Check out the link below, everybody, and sign up for the program today. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste.
Bye. Namaste.